joining us now to discuss this most deadly drug that is plaguing our great nation. He's the former director of the DEA's Special Operations Division, and I would call him a friend of this program, and let me tell you, he's one hell of a fighter, Derek Maltz. Derek, welcome back to the program, sir. You came on this program probably 2 years ago or so. We started talking about fentanyl when it first started pouring in. Some of these reports I read, like I said, date back to 16 and 17, so it's nothing new. However, what is new is the push to bring it in by the truckloads ever since the border was allowed to be wide open under the Biden regime. And now today we have a drug problem, and you correct me if I'm wrong because you're the DEA guy, that is probably the greatest drug crisis our nation has ever seen. Would you agree with that statement?
100%. So Dan, let me give you a stat that just kind of tells it all to me. When President Trump was in office, the first 6 months of fiscal year 20, there was only, I say only, but there was a seizure of a total of, what was it, like 1,326 pounds of fentanyl, right? Yep. This year, in the first 6 months, there is now a total of 13.9 thousand pounds. That is a 948% increase. There is no shortage of fentanyl in American communities, and there's a historic amount of kids that are dying. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but when Mayorkas was recently talking to the Senate committee, he basically said that the fentanyl deaths in America is the greatest single threat to this country. That came out of Mayorkas' mouth. He's the same guy that said we have operational control of the border. Total deception.
Wow. I mean, Derek, what else is new, right? Do we expect anything different from these politicians? And unfortunately, it's not just always on the left. That's what they do in D.C. They do one thing and then lie to the American people under oath about what they're actually doing.
Well, I can tell you Mayor Adams from New York City wasn't lying when he said recently that the Biden administration and the president himself have failed New York on the immigration issue. But the only thing he left out is he failed America on the immigration issue, not just New York City. So now the world knows that you cross, you stay for free. It's that simple. You get to the border, you get let in, and you go for free, and then you can have all these benefits in America, and everything's paid for. But the legacy right now for this administration is 200,000 dead Americans, because the drugs that are coming in here is like nothing we've ever seen. This is not just drugs. This is poisonous substances, Dan. You know about the tranq, right? The xylazine that's coming out of the Chinese labs now, being sold on the websites because China is the partner working with the cartels to destabilize and destroy America.
Yep. I know. And people, that's the thing. I never have heard Democrats connect those dots. Some Republicans that have the backbone in D.C. and some of the border states have connected the dots and will point the finger right at China. But why won't this administration point the finger at China?
Because just look what's going on from the laptop from hell. All the deals that have been made with China. It's something we call blackmail. Hey, Dan, let me see if you can connect these dots. In December of 21, the president himself had a press event and said what an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security was drug trafficking, right? Well, the drug trafficking is coming right from the cartels in Mexico. So why the hell then would the border be left wide open? How is that so difficult for anybody to understand? It's connected right there. I mean, you know, recently they seized one tractor trailer in Green Beans. Operation Blue Lotus, Homeland Security, and CBP seized 3.5 million fake pills in one tractor trailer on one given day.
Wow.
This is what's coming into the country.
Yeah, there is no operational control. And I'm never, ever going to throw that on ICE or Homeland Security or Border Patrol, because I know the men and women that are in uniform at the post doing their jobs mean what they're doing. It's the damn bureaucrats and it's this regime. They're the ones causing this, because how can you just literally have, unless you flip a switch, how can you have the most secure border in American history? And I have had multiple guests on that worked for or ran Homeland Security. I mean, we've had Chad Wolf and Victor and Ron Vitello and all these guys on. And they're all like, look, we've been doing this 30 years, Dan. It was the most secure the last 2.5, 3 years of Trump's presidency, and then it literally was like opening the spigot when Biden took over. How the hell does that happen overnight? And how the hell do we keep allowing it for going on 3 years, 2.5 years of this?
Well, one thing I'll say, Dan, is I look at what's happening to real Americans, like in the first week of April, 18 dead in Michigan. I'm sorry, Milwaukee. I'm sorry, Milwaukee, 18 dead. The week after that, there were like 6 or 7 dead in a 24-hour period in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yep.
So it's like, that's what the American public needs to just look at. And now we have the highest levels of deaths we've ever seen in America from the deadly fentanyl, but yet we're still allowing the cartels to operate with impunity. That's what I don't understand. And they're making billions from the migrant smuggling. So they have unlimited funding, unlimited chemicals from China. They have the Chinese money launderers in America, and people aren't outraged. Like, I don't care who you voted for. Doesn't everyone care about their families and their friends' families and the future of the country? That's what I don't understand.
Well, Derek, let's be real. And again, I never use the word conspiracy theory because I don't believe in them. They're government cover-ups. But you got to ask yourself, we went into a foreign nation, okay? And we took out Osama bin Laden without permission, right? In the middle of the night, under the cover of darkness. We didn't tell a soul. We did that because he was the leader that took out over 3,000 Americans, right? How many people have died because of fentanyl and we won't go take out the cartel? Ask yourself that question, because you're telling me we couldn't put a couple SEAL teams down there to paint the target without even engaging, fly a few drones from Creech Air Force Base over top of the 4 or 5 compounds of the 4 or 5 major families and blow them the hell off the face of the earth, and then tell Mexico on the way out the door, you're welcome, but we don't. Why don't we? Ask that question, Americans. Why don't we? CIA? Why do you think, Derek?
Well, I mean, I'm in total favor of using the greatest military assets that we have in this country, the best and brightest patriots to go after these chemical processing labs in Mexico and disrupting the chemical flow from China. But, you know, this president right now, he's opened the border for terrorists, criminals, sex traffickers.
Right.
But he's done a great job at shutting down the morale of U.S. law enforcement who put their life on the line every day to protect everyone.
Well, Derek, I'll tip my hat to you, brother, because that's one thing you do. You keep this important message of how deadly fentanyl is for all of Americans, especially our children, in the forefront. You're one of the main voices out there I see on all the networks talking about this, especially with our kids. And so God bless you for being that voice until we can make some serious change and get it locked back down. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your assistance here getting the message out.